Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're just going to do a watch party and see if Bitcoin can in fact break through a very modest $63,000. We're not that far away from doing so. We're currently at 62.8K. So let's see if we can in fact break through that level. I was watching this earlier, and you know, we were expecting some volatility, right? I mean, we had the first Bitcoin futures ETF launching tomorrow. Well, I guess it depends. It could be today, depending on where you live. But figured we should at least come and watch, see what is going on with Bitcoin. So we are almost there. We're the watch party might be cut short. We're already almost at 63K. We're at 62,960, 62,950. Let's see, Bitcoin. I'm just posting this in a couple of different places. All right, we're knocking on the door. We're almost there. 63K. Pretty big milestone, right? I mean, it's not the all-time high. Of course, we still have a little bit to go before an all-time high, but it is a certainly pretty big milestone. All right, and you can see we've already taken out the local high that we put in about 3 days ago. We are now above that, and we are continuing to move higher. All right, so let's continue to watch this, see if Bitcoin is in fact able to break through. If we want to draw the line in the sand at 63K, we'll draw it right around there. I mean, that's, well, let me zoom it in a little bit more. Okay, so we'll draw it at 63. So basically that's where we want to break through, more or less. I mean, it's like 63,000 and, well, it's 4. We almost made it already, in fact. We're at, we already hit 62,987. So it seems like it's only a matter of time before we hit that 63K. And, you know, I mean, the prior all-time high is what, like 64.8? Let's go look. I believe it's around, I mean, it depends on the exchange you use, of course, but like on here it had it as 64,899, basically 64,898, 64,899. Let's just say the prior all-time high is 64.9K. And we could basically say if Bitcoin hits 65K, then obviously that is a new all-time high. But for now, we still have a little work to do. If we were to draw a line in the sand at 64.9K, let's just draw it around that region. That, just to give you an idea of what we'd be looking for. Something around there is the prior all-time high. Okay. Now, I'm not saying we're going to make it there in the next hour, but I mean, you know, I mean, with the launch of the futures ETF for Bitcoin, you know, there's going to be a lot of hype around it. There's obviously Bitcoin has been really strong going into the launch, and we could see it happen. We could certainly see it happen. Kind of reminds me of the Coinbase listing. Hopefully, or not the Coinbase, the Coinbase, yeah, the Coinbase listing on the exchange. But the nice thing is that while we could always get short-term pullbacks, of course, the nice thing is now is, unlike May, we are not ahead of schedule. And of course, the risk levels are a lot lower than they were back in May. We said we need a 3 to 6 month period where we calm down, we cool off in the market. We've got that. So could we always get a short-term pullback? Yeah, we could, but I don't think it's going to lead to another 3 to 6 month lull in the market. I think that phase is behind us for a little while. That doesn't mean we can't have another one in the future. But I do believe that phase is behind us at this point. And then again, we've covered all of the reasons why, right? Like I walked you guys through my thought process throughout the entire phase, right? The idea of, okay, we're too far ahead of schedule. We need a drop, going back below the 20-week, getting that pump in August to around 50K. We actually went over 50K, so we went to 53K. The pullback in September, and we held the line at the 20-week SMA. And, you know, I stressed this for months. You can see how powerful it was holding the line at the 20-week. And now we've made a nice move to the upside. And obviously the Bitcoin bears are still in disbelief and they keep calling for a major correction. I don't see that happening right now. I mean, could we get a correction? Yes. Could we get a correction back into the 50 to 60K region? Yes. I think we could, but there's no guarantees that we do. And I don't think we're heading, I don't think we're heading back down this way. Okay. So let me put this back on a log scale. So the way I see it is, for me, like worst case scenario would be like a pullback and then we just continue higher. But even then, I'm not even so sure about it. I feel like the momentum is certainly on Bitcoin's side at the moment. And the 20-week is moving up, all right? So we know the 20-week is moving up as well. The 8-week SMA is moving up. Things look relatively bullish for Bitcoin. Obviously, the main milestone to get past is this final level, okay? If we draw a little rectangle between the current price and the prior all-time high, that is the level that we would ideally like to break, okay? So let's keep an eye on it. Best case scenario, we just slice through it like butter, and then maybe we come back down and test that as support later on, like the prior all-time high. A more conservative scenario would be rejection on the first attempt, and then we come back and maybe take it out later on if it does get rejected or whatever on the first attempt. But anyways, regardless of what you think, regardless, at least on the time frame as to when things are going to break through, I think most people would look at this and say it's relatively bullish. And a lot of people have said before, well, if everyone thinks it's going to happen, then obviously it can happen. That's not really true. I mean, I've done a lot of polls over the years, and the market is actually right a lot in a bull market, right? Like because everyone prefers for the price to just continue higher, right? Everyone prefers for the price to just keep going up, and therefore when you say, all right, what's more likely to happen, a move past the prior all-time high or not, or whatever it is, more people are always going to be, for Bitcoin, I feel like they're always just going to be very optimistic. So the crowd is actually not always wrong. I don't think that's the case, and I saw that in real time during the last leg of this cycle. I did tons of polls saying, what's more likely going to happen? Are we going to go up? Are we going to go down? And overwhelmingly, most polls said we were going to go up, and we overwhelmingly went up. The reason why people say, well, the crowds typically get it wrong is just because, well, once you get to a major local top, obviously at that point, everyone's so insanely bullish that then you do get a pretty big correction. But it's not true to say the market, everyone's always wrong. Because actually there are a lot of bears right now as well, which is another good point. There are a lot of bears at the moment, and they're calling for lower prices. They've redrawn their lines in the sand more times than I can count. I can count at least to 10. I did learn at least that when I studied engineering. So I think that now the major test is to get past the prior all-time high, and even then the bears will be saying it's a double top. And look, what I would speculate? I would speculate that even once we pass the prior all-time high, then they're going to call for some BS bearish divergence or some garbage like that on a long time frame. Look, as I said before, they're going to be screaming at the trap all the way to 100K. Could we get a short-term pullback? Yeah, we could. But I do think a lot of these things are somewhat irrelevant. If you take a bar pattern over this move here, we are actually still tracking it fairly closely. I know we've been following this a little bit on the channel. We are tracking it relatively closely here. So if we just sort of overlay it, if you look to see this move here, and you just simply take that pattern and then overlay it on the current move, I mean, we're almost following it verbatim so far. Okay, so basically this was the move from 29K to 53K, and then this one by the way held the line at the 50-week SMA. This one held the line at the 20-week SMA. All right, so 50-week, 20-week, and if it continues to follow what this move did, what does that mean? Well, it means there's still more upside before a substantial pullback, right? That's what it would mean. I'm not saying that it has to follow it, but if it does follow it, which it has been following it for the last 2 or 3 weeks, then it would suggest there's still more upside before a substantial pullback. Okay, that's just what it simply suggests. And that's also the issue I think that a lot of bears have in uptrends is they basically come to this realization that they're not going to get it for that price that they've been waiting for, and every dip just doesn't quite dip far enough for them, right? Like they see the dip coming, like they see, they might see a dip over here, but it doesn't go down to where they feel comfortable buying, and then it just keeps going higher. So the bears ultimately get trapped. And then what I'm guessing, what I think would be a somewhat poetic move by Bitcoin, and Bitcoin often is somewhat poetic, is it takes out the prior all-time high, decisively proving that in fact 64K was not the prior the market cycle top, right? Or 64.8, 64.9K was not the market cycle top. Maybe it moves higher, and then by the time the bears actually join the party and admit defeat, maybe that's when we get a correction, right? That would be somewhat cruel, wouldn't it? I don't know. I mean, a lot of times that's how the market works out, right? Like by the time someone finally capitulates their ideas and say, all right, well, I was wrong. I'm gonna go buy Bitcoin or whatever. Then you get a pullback, just to rub it in, of course. And then the bulls are just like, all right, well, business as usual, right? I mean, it's the same thing that happened over here. We said during this move, we could easily break the 20-week, but the more important test is when we go back down to test the 20-week. And we said, right, a lot of people are going to call this a dead cat bounce, but we still have a good chance of holding the 20-week SMA. And we did, and you can see how quickly the market sentiment has changed. All right, it's as simple as that. This is, again, it's not rocket science, it's data science. And I mean, here we are. So if we just dubiously speculate for a little bit, which I feel like a lot of people like to do here, if we were to continue to emulate this move, where would it put the price of Bitcoin, right? Where would it put the price of Bitcoin? Well, and actually what we're going to do, I'm actually going to take a longer bar pattern. Let's just take it from there all the way to the current prices so we can more or less see the entire uptrend if it continues to emulate it. So that is what it would look like if it were to continue to emulate that prior move. So what would it entail? It means that by within a few days, we should be trading at 66K, 67K by October 23rd. So like 4 or 5 days from now, obviously depending on what time zone you're in. By November 1st, we should be at 70K if we continue to emulate this pattern. Of course, we could always outperform that pattern. We could always underperform that pattern. I'm just showing you to give you an idea of what's possible based on prior moves that we've seen. All right, so it could be 70K by November 1st. And I mean, if we continue the pattern even further, then it could be even 73K by November 15th. Just simply if we follow this pattern. And if it hits 73K, I mean that's a pretty big move, and I mean maybe we get a pullback back down to the 50 to 60K region and prove the uptrend once again. Even that's not a guarantee because it always could just simply go parabolic and leave people behind. So keep these things in mind, right? I mean, I said earlier that what we want, ideally speaking, is to see Bitcoin put in a higher low, right? We want to see it put in a higher low in September, and that's what we got, okay? I mean, let's just remove all this nonsense that I've drawn over it and just look at this with a very, unbiased view. Pretend you don't own any Bitcoin. Pretend this is just some equity that you have no interest in. If someone showed you this chart, I mean, it just looks like an uptrend, right? I mean, it looks like an uptrend. We had a low, we had a high, right? We had a higher low, we're going to be putting in a higher high. Now, if we were to go out to the top of this uptrend here, then it could still, I mean, it still has a lot of wiggle room the next few days, all the way up to 70 or 67, 68K in the short. I mean, if depending on how long it takes us to reach that, I mean, it could be 69 or 70K. So there's still plenty of wiggle room to the upside in the short term, even based on a fairly conservative uptrend. With that said, the prior all-time high, I think, is the main milestone that Bitcoin is looking to take out here, because we still need to go up about $2,000, about $2,100 from the current price. Obviously, 63K is a fairly important milestone. That the 63K level, in fact, is where if we go look at this candle over here, So if we zoom in, this candle here closed at 63.6K. So the highest daily candle. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, click the bell icon, give the video a thumbs up. You guys know the drill. But the highest daily candle by Bitcoin is 63,589. That's the highest daily candle. Obviously, we know we had a wick higher. We've already put in the highest weekly candle that Bitcoin's ever had. Let's just see if we can put in the highest daily candle that Bitcoin has ever had. And that one again is at 63, just below 63.6K, or, you know, about $800 higher than the current prices. Okay. So let's keep an eye on things, especially as we come into the launch of this futures ETF for Bitcoin. And look, if we get a pullback after it, I think it's fine. I think it's somewhat normal. I do think that the market conditions today are a lot different than they were over here. I'm personally more bullish here than I was over here. You guys know I was very bearish over here. I kept saying that we're ahead of schedule and whatnot. The risk levels were screaming. We're too far gone in the short term. We need a pullback in the summer. Similar circumstances in the idea that we're getting a pump going into the launch of something, of course, but the risk on the market is a lot lower just because we have cooled off significantly and a lot of people have had time to accumulate. So even if we do get a pullback, I don't think it's going to be nearly as substantial or nearly as long as this one. And I think, I mean, honestly, at this point, I would prefer to just see it go up and break it and then maybe come back down later on after the Bitcoin bears finally capitulate and admit defeat. Maybe then we actually get a pullback after going past the prior all-time high. So anyways, that's sort of how I see the market right now. Obviously, we always want it to be up only, and for Bitcoin over the last couple of months, it has more or less been up only, except for that few week pullback in September. But that was expected, right? I mean, every September for the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen pullbacks in September, typically averaging on around -6% if you take every September. This September was around -7%, so pretty much par for the course with what we've seen Bitcoin do in September. Okay, so with that said, what else do you guys want to talk about? We can talk about a few other things. Obviously, we want to keep an eye on Bitcoin and see if it breaks above 63K. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think that a lot of people are sort of missing the forest for the trees here, you know, and again, this is not a day trading channel by any stretch of the imagination. We don't do that here. Again, other channels will pretend to make money doing that, but we don't do that here. This is more of a long-term game, and it's a much better game, right? And I think the people that play the long game end up making a lot more money than the people that are constantly leveraged out of their ears. Okay, I mean, obviously on any given day it's a wash as to who maybe does better, but over the long term, I think people that sort of just play the long game on Bitcoin do a lot better. And you know what? Furthermore, it's also a lot less stressful, and that's worth something. Okay, that is worth something. Not only do I think you do better in your investments by being somewhat passive with it and then just mindlessly DCAing at lower risk times in the market, but you also just get a lot of your time back, right? And you can do other things. And I mean, believe it or not, that is worth something, right? Your time is worth something. So I think the best thing to do is just to figure out, you know, like what you're comfortable accumulating a various project up to, whether it's based on a risk level, whether it's based on you know, some arbitrary line in the sand, whether it's based on just wanting to get your position to a certain value before you stop, whatever it is. You know, you DCA up to it, and then you just let it ride, right? It's not really any more complicated than that. You know, people make it more complicated than that, but it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So the way I see it is Bitcoin looks incredibly bullish, dips are meant for buying, and the bears are going to be screaming at the trap all the way to 100K, and I guarantee you any pullback that Bitcoin gets, they're going to say, see, I told you so, all the way up. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Bitcoin does look extremely bullish, in my opinion. And I'm pretty conservative, right? You know, I've gotten some comments, you know, since over here, people saying, well, Ben, you're being too bullish, right? Look, there's a reason I'm bullish, right? There's a reason I'm bullish. It's not just because I want Bitcoin to go up. Honestly, I would prefer, like, I always like dips. I always like Bitcoin dips because I like buying more Bitcoin, okay? I don't mind them. And the longer you're in the space, you really don't mind them. To me, this area over here was an absolute treat. It was an absolute treat for me. And I think a lot of people who have been in Bitcoin a long time would agree. Like, this is a huge opportunity to DCA Bitcoin when the market is bearish. Okay, so dips are a treat. In my opinion, dips are meant for buying. The reason I'm so bullish is because, I mean, Bitcoin has put in a higher high, it's put in a higher low. We held the line. Damn it, we held the line, right? We held the line as far as I'm concerned. You know, I think we have more or less clear skies ahead. I mean, we have this final cloud that we have to break through. But the nice thing is, you know, once you get too far above the clouds, you start to escape the atmosphere, right, a little bit, and there's a lot less resistance, a lot less wind resistance as you get above, as you continue to navigate higher and higher. And then if you get too far away, then you also escape gravity too. So, well, you don't escape gravity, of course, but the effects of it wear off, right? The effects of it wear off. I guess you can escape it depending on how far you go, but maybe it becomes negligible at that point. Anyways, I'm a physics nerd at heart. We could always talk about space if you want to. It's sort of like when the Voyager spacecraft reached so far out beyond our solar system that it reached beyond the sun's influence, right? The sun, it was so far out that the sun no longer had an influence on it that was more than just, you know, the what it was naturally experiencing from other bodies and whatnot. That's what I mean. But anyways, Bitcoin now is at 62.6K. Let's see if we can take out 63K. I'm not going to stay on too long. Look, let's talk about Ethereum really quick while Bitcoin's back down to 62.6K. Look, with Ethereum, I've said it all along. You know, I love Ethereum. I really do. I think Ethereum is a great project. I'm loaded up on Ethereum. But at the end of the day, right, Bitcoin always outperforms Ethereum in Q4. And every single September, I warn people of it, and every single September, without fail, people give me a hard time over it because they don't like to hear that Ethereum is going to underperform Bitcoin in a quarter. And I'm like, look, don't hate the messenger. It's just the data, right? The data suggests that Ethereum underperforms Bitcoin in Q4. The reason why I like this pattern is because it simply makes for a great trade by the end of the quarter, or as you get into January of the following year, right? I mean, either by the end of December or early January, historically, it makes a really nice move. So, you know, do some people get upset with the idea that Ethereum could bleed against Bitcoin for several months straight? Yeah, they get upset, but they get upset every single year about it, right? They got upset about it over here. They got upset about it over here. Every single Q4, people always tell me that Ethereum is going to lead Bitcoin and it's just going to do this, right? Like, I mean, like to give you an idea, right here in going into September, everyone thinks, right, it's going to keep going up. And I was like, I don't think so. And in fact, in 2019, I said, look, guys, Ethereum tends to underperform Bitcoin in Q4. And it did. Same thing in 2020. Same thing so far in 2021. And I say that as a huge Ethereum bull. We have plenty of videos on the channel where I was very avidly promoting Ethereum at like $80, at $90, at $100, calling it the accumulation phase of a lifetime at $200, the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime at $400, the overvaluation reaccumulation phase of a lifetime at $2,000. And I said this all along, like I'm a huge Ethereum bull. But do we put our bias ahead of what the market suggests will likely happen? No, we don't do that. We don't do that here, okay? So the way I see it, the more likely path in the short term for Ether Bitcoin, more likely path is down. But if Bitcoin goes higher against the US dollar, your consolation prize is that Ethereum USD will likely also go higher against the US dollar. And that's a pretty damn good consolation prize if you ask me, okay? And look, if this does end up doing something like this and it comes all the way down, what is that going to set up for you? More than likely, it's going to set up another huge opportunity as we go into Q1 of the following year. Do you guys remember the video I put out at the end of December 2020? On the very last day of December, I said the video was called Ethereum. Remember the end of December. Because by that point, if the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is still bleeding at that point, then, you know, people are going to absolutely be pissed that it hasn't made a major move against Bitcoin. And then by the time they finally capitulate, that's when it goes up. Okay, so where is it going to bounce? Maybe it bounces here at 0.05, right? I mean, hell, maybe it bounces at 0.06, and Ethereum says to hell with Ben's theory. We're just going to go up now. Maybe 0.05. I would say worst case is 0.04. And that's worst case. I don't even know that we'll make it to 0.04, right? I'm not saying we're going to go that low. All I'm saying is that if it goes that low, it would represent a crazy opportunity on the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, meaning Bitcoin to ETH at that phase, if it were to go that low. If it doesn't go that low, then it might not be as big of an opportunity. So we'll just have to see how it in fact plays out as we continue to navigate Q4. Obviously, the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is not off to a good start so far. But what is the constellation prize? As always, what is the constellation prize? It's that Ethereum USD is almost trading for $4,000, right? So it's not that bad. It really is not that bad. And what I'm looking at here at 4K is we either break it now. This is my thinking on Ethereum. We either break it in the next week or two, or we get one more pullback and then we break it. Okay, so I'll say that again. Let me look at this on an exchange that has a little bit more data. So my speculation on Ethereum USD is that we either break it now, and by now I mean within the next couple of weeks, or we get one more correction and then we break it on the next attempt. Okay. The only reason I say that is because we're still not testing that 4K range. So I mean, once we get up, if we pass 4K, then I think there's a good chance we're moving at that point, right? If we're able to pass 4K. But if we come just short of it, like right here, if we don't make it all the way there, maybe we get one more pullback, and then I think we break it on the next attempt if that happens. Let's go take a look again at what happened in the past, okay? So you can understand why I'm saying that. So on this attempt here, we came up, we got rejected, we came up, back down. On the third attempt, we didn't make it there all the way. But the nice thing is that the pullback was actually pretty tame, and we still just rode the bull market support band, and it literally just kicked the can down the road by like 1 month, like 5 weeks or something, and then we broke it. Okay, and even then, the pullback from the local top in October, the pullback was only, it was only 20%. It wasn't even that substantial of a pullback. So go to the next one. This one was a little bit worse, but I would also argue that this one, the market structure was a lot different. And if you look at this one, we did get a more substantial pullback. But again, either way, whatever happened, whether it went down substantially below the 20-week or whether it didn't, if it sort of came within striking distance of the prior all-time high but didn't quite make it there, you got one more pullback and then it broke. Okay, so this was one more pullback and then it broke on the next attempt. We just flew through it. Here it was one more pullback and we broke on the next attempt. So that's why I'm saying I think there's one of two scenarios that play out. Either we break it now, and by now I don't necessarily mean like while we're on stream. I mean, we either break it now within the next week or two, or we get one more pullback and then on the next attempt we break it. And the only reason I'm saying it depends on if we make it up there, because you can see these prior moves over here. We didn't actually quite make it there on the weekly time frame as high as we had the first two attempts. And it was sort of just like a smaller bounce that sort of took us up, not all the way. And then we came back down and then we broke it just a few weeks later. So what are the main takeaways from this, right? What are the main takeaways from this? Well, Ethereum USD looks bullish as hell. It's just simply in long reaccumulation, in my opinion. Even if my opinion is somewhat ignorant, I think Ethereum is just in long reaccumulation. I think that it's probably going to break out past $4,000 before the end of the year, and I think that the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is going to go on one hell of a journey to the upside. But in the short term, it's more likely to bleed against Bitcoin for another month or two, probably closer to 2 months than 1 month. But we've seen the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation break out as early as mid-December in the past. So while we always say January Q1 is really where the party gets started for Ethereum, we also need to be open-minded and say, well, there have been a couple of times in the past where the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation started moving in December, in mid-December. So I think Ethereum looks really bullish. Again, I would speculate that it's probably going to continue underperforming Bitcoin over the next month or two. And then as we go into 2022, I think Ethereum will then take the lead and then start moving in Q1, Q2, potentially of 2022, especially as we get closer to the merge next year. So just keep that in mind. I do think we will. My guess in terms of like a 10K ETH is that it doesn't happen in 2021. I think 10K is more likely to happen next year, if I'm being completely honest. But that doesn't mean I do think if Bitcoin keeps going up, Ethereum should be able to put in all-time highs. And that's kind of what happened last year, right? I mean, if you look at October through December, Ethereum trended up. I mean, it did a 2x, okay? So if Ethereum did a 2x, from the end of September, let's say 3K to the end of December, it could still be $6,000 by the end of the year, right? It could still be $6,000 by the end of the year. But people might still feel bearish about that if Bitcoin is at like $140,000 or something by the end of the year, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. So that's my feeling on the market at the current moment. I think Bitcoin is in an uptrend, and I think it because that's what it's in. It held the 20-week SMA. I think Ethereum is simply in long consolidation, long reaccumulation, and that it's either going to break it in the next week or two, $4,000, or we're just going to get one more pullback and then it breaks it within a month. Maybe 2 months. Let's just say within five or 6 weeks probably, if it doesn't break it on this attempt here. Anyways, let's go take a look at Bitcoin. It's still, it's at 62.7K, so not a whole lot has happened in the last few minutes. What do you guys want to talk about? If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, click the bell icon to turn on notifications. You guys know the drill. Chess. We normally play chess when the market's bearish, but I was playing chess right before this live stream, actually. I played a couple of games of chess right before this live stream, and I won both of them. I was feeling pretty good. ADA. Everyone wants to talk about ADA. You guys know my opinion on ADA. I clearly outlined it several times, in fact, as we went into the launch of smart contracts. What did I say for anyone paying attention, right? I said, look, if ADA is probably going to pump into the launch of smart contracts, following the launch of smart contracts, it's probably going to have a lull, just like it did after Shelley. And I said back then, it's probably going to last a couple of months at the very least. People don't like to hear it when I say it, but that's what I said, and I stand by it. I'm not going to change my opinion on it. I think it'll ultimately break out. But look, I even made a video a few weeks ago saying, or a week ago or something, saying where do I think ADA is going to break out to the upside. I said probably mid-November is the earliest it'll put in a new all-time high. And honestly, I doubt it does it in mid-November. But I would say it's possible. But I would say mid-November is the earliest I could see it putting in a new all-time high. And of course, this box here is based on if Bitcoin stays bullish, then I think ADA USD will put in a new all-time high somewhere between mid-November and the end of March. Okay, so I'll say that again. If Bitcoin stays bullish, then I think ADA will go on another move to the upside sometime between mid-November and the end of March. Okay, that's what I think with ADA. It's got some stuff to work out right now. I said after the launch of smart contracts, it's gonna cool off for a while. We're gonna go back into the phase of why doesn't ADA ever do anything? Everyone hates that phase, but honestly, that's the best phase for ADA. That way, people can load up if they want to. But it hasn't changed. Right? I think this was the path of least resistance after the launch of smart contracts, and that the earliest I could see us really breaking out is here. A more moderate view would be something like this in January, December, January, and then I would say a more conservative but still bullish view is something like this by like the end of March. Okay, that's what I think about ADA. Hopefully that covers it, or at least covers my opinion. and gives people an idea of what I'm expecting for the ADA USD valuation. Let's go back and look at Bitcoin. So in case you're curious, this is the 63K milestone right here. So this is 63K, if I can actually write this. And then this one up here is 64.9K. Okay, 64.9K. By the way, if you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel. Also, I would remind you, we do have a Telegram channel with over 50,000 people. If you guys want to join it, I'll put it here in the chat. Remember, I will not message you first. So if you get a message from someone pretending to be me, it's not me, and that goes for every platform. If you're on Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, whatever it is, if you're messaging someone and they reached out to you first, it's not me. It's a scammer, and you have to make sure that you realize that. So do not send your crypto to anyone. Do not send your private keys to anyone. You have to avoid all these things. So remember, I will not message you first. It's not because I don't like to message people. It's just a safety precaution so that people know I will not message them first. And if they do get a message from someone that is pretending to be me, they have my profile picture and whatnot, you should know it is not me. Okay, it is not me. They're just pretending. And they're trying to take your hard-earned crypto away from you. And I don't want that to happen. Talk about Ether Bitcoin long-term. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you guys my opinion on Ether Bitcoin long-term, right? And you guys already know my opinion on Ether Bitcoin long-term. Short-term, and by the way, when I say some people take it to mean, oh, you mean like a 4-hour candle. I had someone the other day say that I was wrong about about it bleeding because it had this 1 week where it sort of went up. Look, if I'm wrong about the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation going down in Q4, I don't really care because I think it makes sense to be having a strong Ethereum position regardless in preparation for what comes next year. So if I'm wrong about it, oh well, okay, I don't care. I'll wipe away the tears of being wrong with all the money I'll make on Ethereum going up. I really don't care. The point is that you have to look at the weekly time frame. You need to look at the monthly time frame. So in the short term, while I'm bearish on Ether Bitcoin, on the long term, I'm still very much bullish, and I think that the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is going to continue to trend up with time. That's what I think, okay? Could I be wrong about that? Yes, I could be wrong about it. I've been wrong about things many times in my life, believe it or not. But in the short term, probably more likely down than up. But in the long term, probably more likely up than down. Okay, so maybe it does something like this, and then it continues moving higher. That's what I think. Long term, up. Short term, worst case, is down in the short term, but then we'll probably turn it around early next year, if not before. And I do think that Ether Bitcoin will likely go higher than 0.082, and I think that'll happen next year. And if not next year, then definitely by 2023. Probably next year, right? It'll probably break 0.082 next year. But if it doesn't break it next year, then definitely by the following year. So like worst case scenario, I think would be like if it came all the way back down here, which doesn't have to happen. But then let's suppose it has another nice move. I think it's highly likely that it breaks through 0.082 sometime next year, and maybe even goes all the way up to 0.1. Okay, so this will be the 0.1 milestone more or less. That'll be a pretty crazy target for the Ether Bitcoin valuation to reach. And then beyond that, I mean, there's 0.15, which is the prior all-time high, 0.153, which is where the flippening came from. It was, I mean, I think a lot of people think that the flippening came from the 2018 move by Ethereum, but it didn't. I mean, it came from the move in 2017 when it actually came close to flipping Bitcoin. If you guys don't believe me, let me show you the chart. Okay, let me show you guys something here. So you're going to want to see this if you haven't seen it before. So what I'm going to show you, we're going to go to the all-time high of the Ether Bitcoin ratio. It was on June 12th of 2017. Okay, so look at this. Oh, this is the weekly time frame. Let's go to the daily time frame. Let's go to the daily time frame. So the all-time high on Ether Bitcoin was on June 13th of 2017. All right, so keep that number in mind. June 13th of 2017. Okay, now look at the historical snapshot on June 13th, 2017, and look at the market cap. Bitcoin was at a very modest, and I mean modest, 44.5 billion. Ethereum reached 36.7 billion. Okay, so Ethereum came well within striking distance of the Bitcoin market capitalization. So this is where the flippening came from when it actually seemed like it could flip it. I mean, look at this. I mean, if Bitcoin had gone, or sorry, if Ethereum had gone up by another, 25% or something, it would have flipped it. Okay. So, and it was certainly, it was a possibility that it happened. So the flipping came from that move earlier in 2017, in the summer of 2017, not the move in 2018, because in the move in 2018, it didn't make it up nearly as high, right? It didn't go all the way up to 0.15. So the first milestone for Ethereum Bitcoin to take out will be 0.082. I think it'll do that probably next year. And then above that, obviously, it has the 0.1 valuation to contend with. Probably we'll see some resistance there. But I'll say this. I think Ethereum will go above I think the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation will go above 0.1. I do. I do think it'll make it past 0.1. I'm not 100% sure if it'll make it past 0.15. Could it? It could, but I'm not as confident in that prediction as I would be in saying it's going to go back above 0.082 or 0.1. I think it'll make it there. And if it does go above 0.15, and let's say it goes to like 0.2 or something and flips Bitcoin, I don't think it'll be sustained during like a bear market. Okay, so that's what I think. Short term, somewhat bearish on Ethereum Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin USD goes up, Ether USD will go up. That's the Constellation prize. More medium term and long term, I'm still very much bullish on the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. And I don't think it's going to bleed here for 6 or 12 months. Like, I don't think it's just going to, I don't think the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is just going to do something like this and trail off. I think it's going to continue trending up with time. And the nice thing is, in the short term, the reason it's going down isn't because Bitcoin's going down, it's because Bitcoin's just going up and Ethereum can't keep up with it. And we saw this last year, we saw it the year before. Business as usual for that. All right. It's actually getting pretty late here, and Bitcoin has stalled a little bit. Still a decent chance we make another run at 63K, especially with the launch of the futures ETF and whatnot in the morning. But I should probably go to sleep. Yeah, I should probably head out. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. Remember, we do the premium list into thecryptoverse.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keep an eye on it. Let's see if we break through 63, 64, 65K. If we do, should be an exciting time ahead. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.